And we are live. Matt, how is it going?
Excellent. How are you?
Man, I'm great. I appreciate it. You are the founder of Lead to Growth. Tell me about what you're up to with Lead to Growth, how it started, where it's going, all that fun stuff.
Yeah, so it's a company I started almost 4 years ago at this point. We work with companies to implement CRM systems and ERP systems. For anyone listening who might not, know what that means, it's just basically sales systems and financial management systems. So we help companies use technology to manage those two things. And really kind of just started. My last company I worked at, I was a sales manager, and we hired a consulting company, which is what I'm doing now, to come in and help us with CRM system. I originally launched the application when I was a sales manager, and I got really into solving, sales problems with technology, and it kind of,
Yeah.
I found it exciting. But eventually, my boss said, you need to go back to managing salespeople and spend less time doing this. So
Mhm.
went out, found a company, and once I cut him a couple of checks, I said, "Wow, I'm on the wrong side of this deal." So, um, watched some educational videos, read a couple books, and
Yeah.
said, "Let's give it a shot."
Nice, nice. This is your first venture, or have you done other entrepreneurial ventures before?
First one,
First one.
yeah.
Damn. Is that scary?
No, it's. In a way, yes, but
Yeah.
yeah, I went in the military, so I'm pretty comfortable with risk adverse situations. So
Yeah.
it was just kind of we got to a point. My wife, wanted to have more kids and buy a house, and not just buy a house, build a house. And so I said,
Yeah.
well, it's not going to happen at my income level in my last company. And the only way you can really control it is to go out and do your own thing, in my opinion. So
Yeah.
there we go.
Nice. So you're on year 4, right?
Yep.
So it's a real deal, man. Congratulations.
Thank
Not
you.
not a lot of people make it that far. That's great. That's great. I love it. I love it. Um, so I'm a HubSpot guy. I'm a fan of HubSpot. I'm not gonna go too much into that. Um, but what I do want to ask about is early companies, startups using tools for sales success and operation success. When should they start considering these kinds of tools, and what kind of recommendations would you make for them to like pick the right one and get it implemented the right way?
I think right away, to answer your question, I think there's different systems, depending on where you're at in the path of your business. You mentioned HubSpot. HubSpot is a great tool. I mean, they offer a free solution for sales teams. So if you're, a brand new startup with 1 to 2 salespeople, it probably doesn't make sense to throw, 15, 20,000 plus into a system integration, but it is still important to keep track of your customer interactions and,
Yeah.
integrate it with your marketing platform and do those different types of things. So, there's different things, and usually, companies look at Microsoft, Salesforce, Oracle once they start to grow their revenues, and they have, that need to really create that automation capability. And so, it's, in my opinion, it's kind of a journey of technology.
Yeah. Yeah. I in my experience mentoring and coaching entrepreneurs, I run into a fair amount of people who do a thing that they're really good at, and then they start their business on their own, which is similar to your journey. You were doing something, you want to be on the other side of that check, so you started your own thing. So thinking back to when you were getting started and transitioning, what were some of the challenges that you faced that maybe you didn't anticipate, and how did you overcome those challenges?
Oh, a lot of them. I originally started with a partner. And so the first thing
Okay.
I underestimated was having a partner that was actually engaged and wanting to, build a business from scratch. Especially, my partner at the time, he was somebody who had been around and made quite a bit of money throughout the career, but still had that need to have that salary coming in, if that makes sense. And so it was
Hmm.
a bit difficult to get that leap of faith to come out into the startup world. So that was probably the
Yeah.
first mistake. And, the second one is just really it's process. When I started the company, I had ideas about how things would flow, how they would work. I wrote them all out and pretty much
Hmm.
threw that away within the first week of having the company, really. And it's kind of had to
Yeah.
start from scratch all over again. So I think it's just recognizing that, things are going to change. You need to be flexible. You need to be adaptable, and put your ego aside. We're all, when you start a company, you all, get quickly humble, we'll say.
Yeah. All good stuff. So what size businesses are you typically selling to and working with?
Well, we're kind of, shotgun all over the map, but really, I'm profiling companies that are usually around 1 to 300 million in revenue, typically.
Okay. Yeah. Good. What are some of the things that I mean, you did sales, you managed sales teams. What are some of the perhaps the common mistakes that people make when they're approaching businesses to sell software solutions and services in general?
I think, especially in software sales, we think our software it's just the best thing since sliced bread, and everybody needs what we have to sell, and that's not really the case, in my opinion. Even if they have a need for it, they might not see the value in it. They might not want to see the value in it, and so
Yeah.
it's you can't get hung up on that, and just you have to just keep plugging along and just recognize that's part of the game.
Yep. Yeah. Um, Often I hear people ask me about consulting, and questions like, well, how do you stay motivated? You don't have anybody telling you what to do. You don't need to show up really. So what are some things that you do to build the routine, to stay motivated? If you decided not to show up tomorrow or Monday, would anybody really care? Like how do you what kind of routines do you put in place? How do you keep that momentum going?
It's a great question. I actually, one of the first things I did was I hired a coach, and
Okay.
part of having that coach is we have a monthly accountability call, where even if
Yeah.
it's when you start a company, I mean, it's always easy to not do the behaviors that you need to be successful, right? But it's even easier, and as weird as it might sound to people listening, it's even easier when you become the founder, because it's very easy to say, oh, well, I was working on this, or I was doing that, and that's why I didn't do the things I needed to do to make the company grow. And
Yeah.
so the accountability call that I have, it's an accountability call where I have to state, what I did against my behaviors that I mapped out as necessary to hit my revenue goals. And
Yeah.
a lot of times it's just come on there and I didn't do what I needed to do, right? And it's just making yourself say that out loud to the coach. And he'll say, hey, we'll meet for 10 minutes, but in that 10 minutes, you're going to tell me that you didn't do it. And
Yeah.
just that accountability, that pressure of not wanting to have that call where you say, well, I didn't really do anything this month.
Yeah.
you know
Yeah. It's one thing to let yourself down. It's something else to have to face the music with somebody who's holding you accountable. Yeah, that's
right, for
that's
sure.
really good. What have you found to be important, maybe daily routines for you as a founder and as a business owner who's been going for a few years? Do you stick to similar routines each day?
I do. It's calendar management, which probably is nothing new to people, but I block out time for cold calling, where regardless of what the meeting is or who's asking for it, that's
Hmm.
already blocked out. Can't override that, and so it's just sticking to that constant behavior of doing the outreach, just making sure that you're constantly bringing new deals in the pipeline. To me, is most important, because you have to keep people paid, and you have to keep the
Yeah.
business going. So to me, if I skip out on that part of it, then that has a lot of bad ramifications downstream that could be hurtful, especially when something called COVID pops up and makes things even more
Yeah.
difficult.
Yeah. So I often refer to people who work corporate jobs as normal people, and then like entrepreneurs. And oftentimes I'll ask, or I'll get asked, why am I just not normal? And I can't. And people will ask, like, what do you like about entrepreneurship? So for you, what is it that thing that you love or like about entrepreneurship and living the life that you live?
I think for me, it's probably a combination of three things. One, I really just like to march to the beat of my own drum. I like to do whatever I want to do, and
Yeah.
that's, I don't know. That's how I've always been. That's how I like it.
Yep.
Two, it's unfortunately, I wasn't gifted with the skills to build things with my hands. So
Mhm.
I like to try to build it with my mind. And so I like that part of it. And three, you can earn whatever you think you're worth. So a lot of people get frustrated that they're stagnant at their corporate job. They feel they're not getting the compensation that they're entitled to. So in my opinion, what better way to go out and get that compensation, get what you perceive to be your value, than starting your own company and going out there and getting it for yourself.
Yeah. Wow. What would you say are some steps to explore entrepreneurship? So you went from one sort of corporate normal to consulting. Looking back, are there things that you maybe could have done to experiment with entrepreneurship? And if there are some things, or maybe some things that you think of now, how can people sort of experiment to make sure it's the right thing for them before they jump in?
I don't really know I don't have a good answer for you, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people start their companies as, kind of a side hustle. They, do it on the side, and that definitely works for a lot of people. For me, I struggle to focus on multiple things at one time.
Yeah.
So for me, if I put my full attention to a job and put less attention to my business, then my business is probably not going to get where it needs to be.
Yeah.
So, I quit and just went for it. And I figure, worst case, I'm college educated. I have a good resume. If I fail, then I could always go back. Right. So for
Yeah.
me, it wasn't that fear of, to me, I don't mind if I fail. If I fail, then, I'll learn from it. I'll go back, work maybe for a little bit, and I'll do it again. And
Yeah.
this time I'll have a better plan. Right. And so
Yeah.
nothing bad could come out of it, in my opinion. So,
Yeah. So you're a burn the boats kind of guy. I'm going to burn the boats and I'm just going to go for it,
right.
which is good. I say often that entrepreneurs look at risks in a much different way, which I think it might be the thing that makes them entrepreneurs. We look at risks as the worst thing that can happen on the other side of that risk is I'm going to learn something.
Right.
That's the worst possible thing that's going to happen on the other side of taking that risk, right? Like, okay, if I need to go do a job for a little while, that's okay. I'll do that job and I'll come out on the other side even stronger than I was before.
That's such a
You
great
you
point.
mentioned. Thank you. Go ahead. Sorry, I cut you off.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I mean, you hit on the head. And what really motivated me to start my own company was my last employer that I worked with. I had lunch with my CEO, and he was super successful. He made a lot of money. He had different business ventures, but he never went out and did it for himself. And so I asked him a question. I said, "Hey, you're a smart guy. You had great mentors that helped you kind of come up through your career." I said, "How come you never went out and did it for yourself?" And what he told me was, he's like, I started making good money. I had a family. I, bought a house, bought a boat, and
Mhm.
all of a sudden, like, I didn't have that risk aversion to go out and, live paycheck to paycheck, or to gut it out. So it's just easier to stay where I was at, making good money. And so I kind of heard that, and I'm like, well, I could see where it's easy to get kind of institutionalized, if you will.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. For you, what's the long-term view of what you're building? Are you building an empire with a bunch of people? What's the long-term look like for you?
Really, 10 years, I want to be out. Um, I
Okay.
want to. The one thing I've always been, jealous of in my career would be, people that go to work absolutely loving what they do, like they're completely passionate about it.
Yeah.
And I'm jealous that I haven't achieved that yet in my life. I love what I do now, don't get me wrong, but
Yeah.
it's not something that I'm completely passionate about 24/7. And so what I'd like to do is build a company. I'm building all the infrastructure now to bring in the people and put it
Mhm.
on that trajectory. But at the end of the day, I want to be able to step out, have that income coming in from this business, oversee it in a more limited capacity, and then I want to go out and do, what I'm passionate about, or something that I'd love to wake up to and go do for 8 hours a day.
Yeah. What do you think that is, if you don't mind sharing?
Oh, lawyer.
Oh, sweet. Okay.
Yeah.
What kind?
I don't know. There's a few things I'm interested in. I like criminal law. I like uh, um, antitrust.
Okay.
Kind of interesting as that sounds, I like antitrust. Definitely like the internet law and some of the stuff that pertains around that IP. So I don't know. There's a couple different directions. I guess
Yeah.
once I get some exposure to it, then I could probably narrow it down better. But it's always
Yeah.
been something that I wanted to do. Happened. There's a story behind it. Maybe that's for another day. But yeah.
I love it. I love it. Awesome. So I'd love to give you the opportunity just to share what's on your mind, any additional lessons learned, tips, hot takes, jokes, recipes, or whatever's on your mind. I'd love to hear it.
Oh man, what kind of tips are you looking for?
A lot of people that are tuning into this are newer entrepreneurs,
Hmm.
people that are in year zero, year one, trying to sort their shit out. Um, you know, um, wondering if it's something they should be doing or not. So things related to like like that's why I asked a couple questions, like keeping yourself motivated, keeping yourself going. So if that helps, maybe around that theme.
My first tip is cold calling is not dead. I'm going to start a huge
Yeah,
controversy
yeah.
for anybody watching this video. So with my business, I do all my customer acquisition is through the phone, all of it.
Hmm.
I've had some referrals come in, obviously, but um, yeah, I just pick up the phone, call people, pitch them, and no problem selling them. So that's one thing I
Yeah.
would say for cold calling is not dead. So don't let people tell you that it is.
How? So a lot of people will say that they uh, don't like cold calling. They can't do it. They can't sell themselves. They're not good at sales. How do you get people over that? And 'cause I agree, you got to pick up the phone and make the call. So how do you get people over that hump of, you know what, I'm not, I can't, I don't want to, whatever.
Um, I think you just got to do it. It's like anything. You just got to do it. And the biggest thing that I do is, if somebody calls me and they cuss me out, like I don't take it personal. You
Yeah,
know, um, I didn't do. I always tell myself like I didn't do anything to that person. Usually, I'm calling fellow salespeople, so to me,
yeah,
if the salesperson's going to get mad because I called them and offered my, to have a 2-minute conversation with them, then I don't know. It's probably something else. So it's just you know. I have a motto. Some will, so some won't. So what? Somebody's waiting. That's my motto.
yeah, yeah,
So I
yeah,
just keep going, and for me, it's less about selling them and convincing them, but just walking them to seeing why it's important to make a change, regardless of whether it's me or some other vendor.
yeah,
It's I believe in I don't believe in overcoming objections as much as just
right,
letting them come to that realization on their own. And I find that when you do that versus, the old Dale Carnegie, if I could do this, can we
yeah,
sign this deal, right?
yeah,
So it's
right,
different approach.
yeah. So this might be a little bit controversial, but do you think that somebody can be a successful entrepreneur and not be willing to pick up the phone and call?
I think it depends on the product.
Sure. Okay.
There's definitely products that work well with social media, no doubt.
Sure. Yep.
Um, for me, and I've tried. So full disclosure, like I'm not like a marketing genius. I'm not like a big social guy. So I've outsourced those efforts to people who claim to be the ninjas, the gurus, the whatever you want to call them,
Sure.
and I didn't have much success. And so I think in part, so I typically target sales VPs, CEOs, business owners, right? I find that those people typically aren't on Facebook looking to buy complex CRM systems,
Right.
and even if they were, like, it's very hard to narrow them down given the data parameters on Facebook. So that
Yeah.
made that tough. And again, this is just my opinion. Maybe somebody will
Oh yeah.
reach out to me and tell me I'm wrong. But and then on Facebook, as a owner of a company, I probably get 50, 60 plus messages weekly,
Yeah.
with people pitching services, and it gets lost in the noise. Fun fact about cold calling: you know how many cold calls? Guess how many cold calls I've gotten in the 4 years I've had my company?
3.
Wow, you're the first person that got it. But yeah, three. Three's the answer.
You know how I
So
know that?
yeah, you probably
That's how
what's
many
your
I've
experience?
gotten. Here's the thing. I hate email. I cannot stand it. It's well documented throughout the universe. Luke Williams hates email. I have a scheduling link on my LinkedIn profile for anybody to book a 20-minute phone call. Do you know how many times somebody's booked a 20-minute phone call instead of sending me a DM asking to jump on the phone?
I mean, I'm gonna say probably none.
Zero.
Right.
Like, just just pick up the phone. Either pick up the phone or schedule a 20-minute call. Like, why are you sending me an email? I don't know. So
Right.
yeah. Well, the thing about cold calling is if somebody doesn't want to talk or if they don't have the time to talk, they're not going to pick up the phone.
True.
Just have the conversation, especially with your mentality of it's not about overcoming objections. It's not present, object, overcome, object, overcome, and win. Like those days of selling are over. That reminds me of my days telemarketing at MCI. Like that was the tricks of the trade then. So if you're just having conversations, telling people that there could be a better way and explaining that, and if they come to the conclusion that you're the best provider, then that's freaking great. So yeah.
Yeah, so it's like when I call them, I even tell them up front, like this might not make sense for you, right?
Right.
And that's okay. And so
Yeah.
you just ask for a small amount of time and
Sure.
stick to that. And usually, if you do that, it's not too bad of an interaction. I mean, some people are just going to be rude to you regardless of
Sure.
how you connect with them, but that's it's just how it goes.
Yeah.
Can't take it personal.
Yep. Awesome.
But I guess
oh, sorry. No, go ahead. You're good.
Yeah, but I was gonna say, I suppose for a founding company, you could always bring in, somebody to do sales. The reason I want to go back to it, my piece of advice would be just make sure that you're, thorough in screening out any companies that would do that for you. You'll have a lot of companies that'll just beg for an appointment.
Right.
Why don't you just meet with Luke and let's just see if anything comes out of it. And then they check off the, well, I got you an appointment. And then you get on there and you're like, well, just curious, why did you take this meeting? They're like, I don't know. They said we should talk. And then you give them your 30-second commercial and they're like, yeah, I have no reason to want to do that. And so now you just wasted your money hiring a company that begged for an appointment that turned into nothing. And now you're blocking out your calendar to waste your time for people that are going to never do business with you. So it's kind of a double fail.
Yeah, no, really good point. Yeah, really good point. Awesome. Hard to believe, but we're a little bit over 20 minutes. Anything else you wanna share? Any other hot takes, tips, etc.?
Just go for it. When I started my business, again, I didn't come from the space. I'd used CRM systems, as a salesperson, as a sales manager, but I hadn't built anything before. And so, I just read some books, surrounded myself with people who are, competent to kind of offset my deficiencies and my, strengths kind of offset, their deficiencies. And so just go for it. I mean, the worst thing that could happen is it doesn't work out and you go back and you start over again. And it's a fun process. You learn. And regardless, there's a lot you can even take back to companies if you decide that entrepreneurship is not for you. So just go for it.
Love it, man. Thank you so much. I appreciate you stopping by.
Appreciate having me.
Thank you so much.